Great. I think we're already live. I just see so many participants. And the best part is with Ankur, it's always a few hundred people who are already there 10 minutes back. So whenever I'm hosting him at the backstage, there's this performance pressure that's already there. Okay. There's people waiting to just dive in. So we really need to
Uh,
get them right in the start. Very
uh,
happy to have you, Ankur. Thank you so much.
it's so good to always come back here to everything that you guys do at Pepper. It's a joy to be witnessing your journey from a distance. बहुत मजा आता है देखकर. And thank you for having me at Elevate. I'm super super pumped to be here today.
Yes, totally. And Ankur, I was thinking about when we, I think, first spoke, it was 3 years back, very
Yes.
interestingly, right? And 3 years back was a phone call I remember. And it's always just so delightful, hearing your voice. There's this certain reassurance in your voice about, okay, ye banda jo bhi bolega, it's got to mean something and it preserves somehow or the other. And it's always done that for us.
No man, thank you for being so kind. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. I really don't want to spend too much time talking about your introduction because I think everyone who's here knows you. And I'd really just love to take the time to deep dive into what we've been
Yes,
talking about, which is,
बिल्कुल.
unraveling what it takes to be a content entrepreneur. Now, content entrepreneurship is an exciting career, one that could be a great income stream, but for a lot of people, it's also a very large jump into something which is very unknown, right? Today, even big companies, brands are investing millions in content creation and focusing on what to create. And being a first time creator, there's just so many question marks in a market where there's just millions of creators who are vying for attention and so on. So how do you focus on building an audience, turning it into community and so on? There's multiple such facets we'd love to understand from you, Ankur.
Sure.
So starting off, as a content creator, could you maybe walk us through your journey of eventually taking this deep dive into this question mark of what being a content creator in India looks like?
Sure, sure. So I'll walk you through the journey, Anirudh, because it's not what people think it is. While I have gained a lot of traction in the last 1 year, the process started long time back, and frankly, not a lot of people even knew of me beyond the startup ecosystem where I had some sort of experience. I started writing a blog in 2005 when I became a MBA student at ISB, and I have maintained that blog till date. I write a blog every single day, and that has been almost 16 years of writing experience when it comes to content creation. My first video came up in 2016, and this was not on YouTube but on LinkedIn, where LinkedIn had just announced and started a video feature, and as one of the early adopters of that feature, and I started creating content, and that was the genesis of what became Warikoo Wednesdays as a property name. I started my YouTube channel in 2017 of August, and for the first 3 years of our existence, which is 2017 to 2020, we were clinically doing everything that everyone would ask us to do. And yet there was traction, but not nearly to the extent that one would imagine. To give you a sense, and this is shocking when I share this, in August of 2020, I had about 18,000 followers on YouTube. This was after 3 years. We're going to hit a million anytime today or tomorrow or day after. So almost everything that has happened in the last 1 year is actually 99% over the last 4 years. Um, and that is how long it takes and how disciplined a fashion is. But that's been my journey in a nutshell. It's taken a long while. It is meant to take a long while. A lot of myth is around content creation being a very overnight thing where you go viral and then you suddenly make it happen. So people are like, oh, look at Yash Raj, and he's now creating all these music, and he became viral because of Rasode and so on. But if you literally go through his YouTube and his Instagram, he's been doing it for like 4 years before anyone noticed. Or you look at anyone from Sandeep Maheshwari to Carrie Manati to Bhuvan. They've been at it for years and years and years. And it's only in the recent past that a lot of that has exploded for several reasons. And I don't think anyone's story will be very different from mine or all these creators that we now know and adore.
No, totally makes a lot of sense. And I think in this entire excitement of this glam that comes with being a creator or influencer, so to say, I think a lot of people don't, look at the boring process, right? People think of content creation as instantaneous and spontaneous, and I don't think that's there, right?
Yeah.
There's a process, there's an ideology, there's a framework that's behind it, and a lot of people don't give too much time attention to it. Even starting for you, right? What is that process that you've said that is always there in the backlight but
Yeah.
never comes to the fore?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anirudh, and I'm so glad you touched upon this, because there is, in any creation journey, whether it is content, whether it is starting your own business, whether it's even a job or perhaps even a relationship, there is an exciting part and then there is a boring part. And the exciting part is what attracts us. It's where we tend to spend a lot of our time. It is what gives us the dopamine shot, the adrenal rush. And then there is the boring part, which we tend to avoid, which we don't focus on a lot. And the truth is, if you look at anything, whether it is a relationship, whether it's a career, whether it's education, whether it's content creation, the exciting part is what will attract most people, but will not make you progress as much. And the boring part is what will repel people, but is the only reason why you will move and move forward. So, at the face of it, the exciting part about building this entire personal brand of Warikoo is, oh my God, look at the followers, look at all the traction that I get, look at all the adulation that comes through, look at everything, and so on and so forth. But here's the boring part. And it's boring not in the sense that it's boring for me. It's boring in the sense that you have to do it clinically, and clinically well, every single day, every single week, every single month. And there's no escaping this. So every week on a Tuesday, on an afternoon and Tuesday, I sit down and I create the content for the entire week. I shoot my 3 YouTube videos that will go live in the week. I shoot all the Instagram videos that will go live. I will shoot the podcast or record the podcast that will go live. I will shoot all the 7 reels that are going to go live every single day in the week. And I will write out the newsletter that will go out that Friday. And every piece of that content gets done in that 4 to 5 hour slot, which is when I'm in the zone and I'm in the flow. And the minute that happens, it gets picked up by different people. Now, I have a team, but earlier when I didn't have a team, which was as early as just last year, this was me, but playing a very different role. So on a Tuesday, I play the role of a creator, but then on a Wednesday, I was playing the role of, say, an editor, where I was sitting with the video and the raw files, editing it, post producing it, adding all the effects, the supers, the music, so on and so forth. Then on Thursday, I was the graphic designer who was creating the thumbnails and the visual imagery and so on and so forth. On Friday, I was a subtitle guy who was just creating and transcripting all that videos into a subtitle that would go on for there. On Saturday, I was a researcher who was researching for all the keywords and everything that needs to happen. Today, all of that is done with a team. I have a team of 14 people that help me in every facet of all the content creation journey that we have. And if you look at it, it is an immaculately drawn out process over 2 weeks. So when I shoot something on a Tuesday, it only gets ready the next Sunday. That means after 14 days almost, for the rest of the week. And that's why we do such advanced planning. If I look at my YouTube schedule right now, sitting on, what is it? It's the 23rd today, the 23rd of October. We have our videos planned till the end of November. We know when, which video will go out and why. All of that planning is what goes into making this content engine work. And it's the testimony to that is we recently hired a content writing intern after almost 2 months of a search, because we pay a lot of emphasis to the kind of people that we work with. And she comes in, and after a week, I was checking on her, hey, how's it going? And she is like, now I understand and appreciate all the hard work that goes behind every single thing that we see. Like, it's very easy for us to say, oh my God, Ankur Warikoo is here also, and here also, and here also, and here also. but I now understand how that clinically works. That those 4 or 5 hours of time, then led by a process, converts into 67 unique pieces of content across 5 different unique platforms with a very different persona in each one of them. That's the boring part. Needs to be done, has to be done, and everyone does it. But if it's done, consistency is now a habit, not a choice.
No, I'm glad you shared that, and I think for all the fellow content creators who are here listening us, I think like Ankur said, this is an artist journey and it has to be done. Coming to an interesting question, and we were talking about it, right? See, when you're an entrepreneur running a company, you're answerable to shareholders, employees, investors, your users, multiple stakeholders, right? And I think for all of us who've been there in this journey, it's in a sense it's a shit show. You're waking one day feeling great, and the other day you feel like shit, and then you're coming back up and trying to do that. And that transition to say to a content entrepreneur, right? And we were discussing this, right? Every day probably waking up to seeing hundreds of emails or messages from people all across consuming your content, and then you realize that while you thought you were doing something interesting, but whatever you were doing is just causing so much impact in a person's perspective to look at life, right? How is that answerability for you? How has that changed from an entrepreneur to being a content entrepreneur, and how does that impact your mind towards?
Yeah, I think to be honest, the training of entrepreneur for the last decade for me has
Yeah.
perhaps set me up for this role, Anirudh. When you are an entrepreneur and you recognize it as well, I was running a B2C company,
Yeah.
and there you are answerable to all the thousands and millions of customers that are buying from you every single day.
Yeah.
And there is a certain DNA and a mindset that you build across years to deal with that. It is a position of responsibility. You may not be creating impact in their lives as the definition of impact
Yeah.
implies, but you're definitely answerable to them in very meaningful ways because they have parted with their money and given it to you with a certain sense of trust attached to it. And I feel in the last 10 years and how I have grown as an individual, how I have gotten trained in this mindset of being answerable to so many people, that set me up in a good way for becoming a content entrepreneur. Because you're so right. You are now not charging for anything. People are not paying you necessarily with anything, but they are still paying you with what is perhaps the most precious raw material everyone has, and that is their time and their attention. And that is immensely valuable, and it cannot be taken lightly, it cannot be taken frivolously. So you have to be cautious about what you say, you have to be cautious about how you say it, you have to be cautious about how you conduct yourself. And there I often speak about this one thing which is so dear to me in the journey of content creation that I would love every content entrepreneur to also think about is authenticity. There are a lot of people who are living almost dual lives where they are someone in their real life, but then they have to become someone when they are a content creator or entrepreneur. And that, in my opinion, is not sustainable. Because if you have to put up a facade, you have to put up a mask to become someone else, to then project a certain image of yours into the world, you are going to find it very, very hard to be consistent. You are at some point of time going to show the cracks that this is not who you are, but this is who you truly are. And I am so blessed that I don't have that problem because I am just doing what is authentically me. I am not pretending to be anyone else. I'm not married to this identity. And if you were to meet me in a mall, you were to meet me in real life, you were to speak to me, or you were to see me on a video, you would find the exact same person every day because that's who I am. And I feel that makes it very easy for me and should be the reason why people choose to project their authentic self as against create another persona. Because if you're authentic and if you're yourself, then you will always be consistent. It's as simple as that.
Makes sense. And with every year, every, I think, single moment is always, you're always learning with what's happening in time, right? If I were to ask you that the current Ankur Warikoo speaks to, say, a 1 year before Ankur, who was just starting at his journey, and probably 3 years before Ankur, when he probably shot his first LinkedIn video, right? What would he say in terms of things to look for, or in general, if you go back in time?
I I'd start with something that I would love to tell everyone, definitely including myself, which is you will be surprised, my friend, at how far consistency will take you. Because frankly, when I started, or for that matter, when anyone starts, I don't think anyone in their mental capacity can even imagine how big this can become if they are consistent with it. I, for a fact, could not have imagined that in a year we would be sitting on everything that we're sitting on, that the reach would be such, the respect would be such, the following would be such. It is just consistency that has gotten me there. And that's what I keep telling the team, that isn't it amazing that if we were to continue doing this, like we're going to be, say, hitting 1 million on YouTube, and a 10 million follower seems like, oh my God, is it ever going to happen? And I keep telling the team, guess what? If we were to consistently do what we have done, then in 10 years, we will be in 10 million. 10 million. 1 crore people will be following your YouTube channel in just 1 decade. Can you imagine how powerful that is? And that's when they open up and realize the power of it, because we're always very short term in where we want to get to and how long it should take us to get there. So we always set these very unrealistic goals for ourselves, these targets for ourselves. But if you were to really zoom out, broaden yourself, it is an eventuality that you're going to become big. All you need to do is just be consistent at it. It's almost like me saying it's an eventuality that Pepper is going to become a unicorn, become one of the biggest content companies in the world. All you need to do is just do consistently what you're doing today. That's it. Just keep standing and doing what is consistently required. And that, frankly, will be what I will tell myself. That's what I will tell my 20-year-old. That's what I will tell my 10-year-old. That's what I would love to tell my kids. That's what I'm sharing with all of you here as well. It is unbelievable and humanly unfathomable how far you get if you just choose to be consistent.
That makes ton of sense. And I think every time we always like, you have this quote, do epic shit, or just do it, or just get to it, right? And the toughest question for anyone to hear to answer is, okay, what's the first step, right? Right, everyone's always about, okay, get in the flow and so on, while it's always empowering to just get into it immediately. But what would, say, day one, day two, day three look like? And for any creator who's looking to go past that mental block, well, yesterday, I don't know, I found myself typing this, कि I think हमारे दिमाग में हम एक रेड लाइट पे खुद को बांध लेते हैं, right? And probably it's just that perennial state, right? And then how do you go past that red light? What happens
Correct.
that goes that?
Correct.
Would love to hear that.
So I think the first thing, Anirudh, which is immensely important to recognize is कि कोई भी चीज अगर बहुत वक्त लेगी या बहुत लंबा वक्त लेगी, then it is important you give it that time.
Yeah.
But you also need to be realistic, right? Because there is a life to lead, there is money to be earned, there is a livelihood to be earned, so on and so forth. And my suggestion to all content entrepreneurs and creators is, if you do want to make content your career, then there needs to be a plan and a clear path to get there. Here is what I would propose to you if I were to do it for myself, because that's what I've done for myself as well. Number one, find something that gives you financial stability. It is important. Don't dismiss it. And don't disappoint people who seek that as well. Ajkal, especially in the startup world, it's become very cool to disappoint people who have a 9 to 5 job, who are working in a corporate setup, or you are so unambitious, you are a sellout, you don't know how much money you can make, and so on and so forth. Screw all of that. Focus on just getting financial stability. Because if you get financial stability, then you have a bottom line ensured. You also are not using that financial stability to change your orbit or your life. So it's very, very clear that this job serves only one purpose, and that is to give me financial stability. It may not give me fulfillment, may not give me contentment. As long as it is not emotionally and physically damaging me, I will stick with this job, do what is required for me to do it well, and that's just it. And then your nights and your weekends, your holidays, whatever time you can cull out of your day job, you spend towards the creation of content. You make it into a process. You design your world around that. You know that you're going to come back home at a certain point or log off from your meetings at a certain point, and that's when you will start the content creation journey. You will assign days and tasks to each one. You will get through that process, that flow. Do it in the way that you want to and should. For the first 3 years of my video creation, whether on YouTube, whether on LinkedIn, all that I had was just a phone, a mic that I bought for 5,000 rupees, and a tripod. That was it. No other person, nothing helping me. It was just me, my own edits, my own subtitles, just one person in the nearby team itself who used to upload it for me because they were as it is doing it on social media. And that was how I played the game. And it served me well. So you do that second piece. The reason why you'll be able to do it is because you haven't put the pressure from day one of that content journey to make money for you, which is where most people fall. When you quit your job to become a content creator and an influencer, or you start doing that right out of your college with nothing to back you up financially, you very soon will put the pressure of it making money. And content, by definition, is a long term game. If, let's say, you begin to make content on YouTube, you have to put out at least one video a week for at least 18 months before you begin to see any result come out of it. This is true for anyone. And that is a really long time for you to sustain yourself without money. So you got to have that piece as well. So, step one, financial stability. Step two, all the time that you need to hone your skills and to create content. And then step three, keep improvising, keep exploring around what content works as a combination of who you are and what your audience seeks. That content market fit, which is the equivalent of the product market fit in the startup world, is necessary for everyone to go to. I am a startup guy. And for 10 years, all that I did was just startups. When I started creating content on YouTube, I was like, I can speak about startups, but I can also speak about several other things that I've done in life. And I've done a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes with money. I've made a lot of mistakes with my career. I've made a lot of mistakes with my relationship. I began sharing that. And when I began sharing that, what I realized was whenever I spoke about money, people listened and listened in a manner that I was surprised by. And I realized the reason why they are is because I, having lived life longer than them, had made a lot of mistakes around money to realize how should money be looked at and how it should not be looked at. So I was not coming in from a point of expertise that I'm a CA or a CFA or a financial advisor or anything. I was actually coming in from a point of having made so many blunders with money that when I spoke authentically about all those mistakes and what I do now as against what I did earlier, people were like, aha, I see my parents do the same thing. I now know why it doesn't work. I'm going to pay attention to that. And I, through that journey of exploration, found that content market fit, where today 70% of my content on YouTube is around personal finance. I have nothing to do with personal finance. I shouldn't be the one speaking about personal finance, and yet I am, because there is some connect that I have formed because of my experiences, the way that I conduct myself, and what the audience wants. And that content market fit should have taken time, would have taken time. So when you get financial backing, you begin to spend time in creating that content as a process, and you give it enough time to explore what your content market fit is. Those, in my opinion, are the three steps for you to become a content entrepreneur or a content creator. Any other way will be harder. Any other way will be a lot riskier. Any other way will make you more frustrated because you will begin to expect results right away as against actually see them in the time horizon that they take.
No, totally. I think that makes just ton of sense. And Ankur, you're active on Twitter, right? And there's this huge wave of this passion economy or creator economy as buzzwords that have scaled up over the last one and a half year, right? And being a creator yourself, if I were to ask you to, just probably segment out what passion economy for Indian creators look like, right? Do you see this the hype is real probably here in India, or it's just Twitter we're looking at?
Yeah, I feel that the it is definitely hyped. That is my personal opinion. I feel that there is not as much value as is meant out to be. But here is what I do admit. I feel that content creation in general has become a lot more meaningful than it was in the past. It's a legit career profession. It is a legit way of making money. It's a legit way of connecting with people at an individual level without the need of a company or a brand to back you up. So please, by all means, pursue, explore, and entertain that thought in your mind. Having said that, it is critical that you do not, as I've said right away, you do not take it to be your career from day one, because it's not going to be a career from day one. It's going to be a passion from day one. It's going to take a long while before you get to monetizing it. And once you start monetizing it, the amount of money you're able to make, or the quantum, whether it serves your life needs or not, is when it becomes a career or not. Until then, it's frankly just a side hustle that you are entertaining and building upon. So let nobody fool you that your tools and your software and your technology is not going to be the reason why you make money. Reason you make money is because your content is really good, a lot of people connect with it, and you're able to do that consistently for a really long period of time. If that doesn't happen, no tool is going to save you. Nothing is going to make it better or easier for you than you yourself being consistent with it. Here's the prediction. I actually believe that in the next decade, the world is going to see its first personal brand unicorn, where there will be just one person who will create value which will be greater than $1 billion that most people go after or think of. When you look at a Joe Rogan, when you look at so many individual contributors that are creating meaningful waves and are doing it at reasonable size and scale, the world is ready for content to become a mainstream profession. And it's not going to be a winners take all profession, by far not, because our entertainment needs and our information needs are very, very dispersed. I may look at comedy once, I may look at history the next second, I may look at geography the next, I may look at music next. So I am going to, by definition, require a very long tail need. And that means that if you have a niche and if you have something to say that very few people do, and you do it in a manner that is uniquely you, you stand to make that into a career and a mushrooming one.
That makes again a lot of sense, and I repeat this line again and again because it looks like unfiltered truth, which is just on point. And also this interesting thought, and a lot of creators, right? While obviously creative fatigue is real, at the same time, when you're a content creator, there's this undue pressure of likes, performance, multiple other creators coming in, and obviously it's now a leveling field, right? It's currently there's probably no funding play which gives someone a very significant advantage, so it's just you, right? So do you at any given point of time also feel imposter syndrome or anything of this sorts, where you see that there's this just unevenness in your mind about you not feeling full, or you not feeling yourself at your peak game every single day?
I think there's a difference, Anirudh, in me feeling as an imposter, which, by the way, I feel every waking second of my life, or I feel that I don't have the energy to continue with this anymore. My imposter syndrome drives me, and I'm glad that it works that way, because I know of a lot of people whose imposter syndrome paralyzes them. For me, it is my way of becoming or trying to become better at what I'm doing. I perpetually feel that I am an imposter, that I do not know enough, that the respect and the appreciation that I get, I'm not worthy of it, I'm not deserving of it. So I have to continuously keep working towards getting to a point where I can hopefully say that I deserve this. And that makes me drive forward. But I go back to my point of authenticity to drive home the fact that you will be low on energy if you have to become someone else to do what you have to do. It's almost like when people speak of work life balance, the reason why most of us crave for work life balance is not because our work is very stressful. It is because we become or are forced to become someone else when we are at work. We are a very different person when we are not at work, with our friends, with our family, even with ourselves. But the minute we enter office or we attend that meeting, we have to become someone else. And if we have to become someone else, that will, by definition of physics, dispense energy. It will consume energy because it's translating from one state to another state. I'm sorry, I'm being very geeky here, but my science brain just comes over and overpowers me. But that's how it happens. There is a change of state of matter, and you have to then move energy from one state to another to make that happen. So you're losing energy whenever you have to become someone else. And if you are surrounded by people who force you to become someone else, or you're creating content that forces you to become someone else, you are going to always be at a loss of energy. So for me, energy has nothing to do with imposter syndrome. These two are distinct elements. I continuously believe that I'm an imposter, and that drives me positively. I am never out of energy because I am authentically doing what I am and who I am in real life. And I think a combination of these two is a potent mix for someone like me.
That, that's very interesting to hear. And when you use the term authentic, and that rings a really interesting bell in my mind, right? That I think as a creator, you have different orbits, right? You're going to just hit a million followers, and suddenly there's this trust, responsibility, there's thousands of people reaching out, all of that. And sometimes I'm sure I think it changes you as a person, uh, looking at yourself and how you've evolved, right? How do you consistently remain authentic and humble, right? And we've seen multiple creators go very different paths, and I think that's where it becomes more like a celeb play or other things. But how do you maintain authenticity consistently?
Uh, I think that there are several ways. I'll share the three ways that work for me.
Yeah.
One, I'm always surrounded by people who I have grown up with, who know me from a time when no one else knew me. And they are very truthful and honest with me always, to the extent that they will ground me always. They'll be like, dude, we know where you come from, right? Do you remember who you were? Like, settle down, just be okay, chill mar. Like, teri auqaat itni hai. So I'm surrounded by people who are not yes men and women, but I'm surrounded by people who are authentically and brutally candid with me, with who I am and what I'm capable of. That really helps. Number two, I'm also always looking at the world above me. There is a world above me which inspires me, that I look up to, that I would also want to in some way emulate, at least from how they conduct themselves. These are people who have gone on to do fantastic things. They may not be as widely successful or recognized that you and I or everybody else knows, but they are people that I deem successful in their own right. And I feel inspired by looking at their journey. And when I look at them, I see traits that I would love to bring in my own self, of which humility is consistently one of them. Consistently one of them. I am yet to meet someone that I adore, I look up to, I feel passionately towards, who is not humble. And for me, it's such a powerful way of celebrating who you are, because you're constantly aware of your privilege. You're constantly aware of the fact that you were just lucky to be born in a family that took care of you, gave you food, shelter, education, and upbringing, because of which you sit on opportunities that most people will never get to see for even a second of their life. So I'm constantly looking up and saying, dude, if they are not bragging about who they are and where they've gotten in point, where are you? Like, what even starts to qualify as you saying, oh, look at me and look how cool I am? And then number three is that imposter syndrome that I spoke about. It works for me, and I don't mean it in a frivolous manner when I say that it works for me. It actually works for me. I constantly look at myself. I'm never embarrassed to who I was, but I'm always making a point that I go back to who I was. My first blog post that was written in May 2005 is still there for people to see. And if people were to read that, they'd be like, who is this retard? Like, why is he speaking like this or writing shit like that? That's who I was. And I'm so glad that it's still there, because it constantly reminds me of how far I've come along. And yet, how much I still do not know of. The first video, the first everything. So I keep tracking my own journey, and that imposter syndrome keeps drilling down in me that, dude, don't get high on whatever is happening. This is not you. This is your persona that people adore. It's like, I remember this, and you'll get it to some extent, Anirudh. When I was with Groupon, running the Groupon India and APAC business, I won the Fortune 40 under 40 for the year of 2013 and 2014. And I, at that point of time, frankly, thought I have done nothing to deserve that at all. Like nothing. I was 33, 34, and I frankly didn't do anything to deserve that. Then I started Nearby in 2015. And I think those 4 years that I was Nearby, I was the best version of myself, the absolute best version of myself. I was at it. And I didn't win any award those 4 years, none whatsoever. And that was just a stark reminder. And I'm so glad that I got that. Is that award was not for me. That award was for the position that I held. That award was recognizing the title that I had. It was not about Ankur Warikoo. It was about the Groupon India CEO as against the Nearby CEO. And that is such a powerful enforcement in my mind, that don't ever get married to what people think of you, because people are just in love with the image of you. They don't even know you. You don't even know yourself. And that, to me, is that imposter syndrome, which just keeps me level-headed. So the company that I keep, the people that I look up to, and my own imposter syndrome that keeps reminding me how far along I have to go. That just keeps me humble. I don't have any other way.
Awesome. I think, I think it reflects also how you think, right? And I think it's just so clear in your head. And I think it's very interesting to see. And, another thing, and as a founder, say, as a startup founder for me, right? The North Star for me is building, say, an institution that outlives or outlasts me, right?
Yeah.
And probably that's my North Star metric. For some, it's IPO, unicorn, 10 other things, right? What's that for, say the Warikoo brand that you're building, right? What's that North Star goal for you?
It's the same. It's the same. And I think that's where content is so powerful, Anirudh, because if I build a company and a startup, it may not survive after me, because people will be responsible for running it, and they may do a job very different from what I would have done. But if I've created content, that video is going to live forever, because that's how the world is. It's like creating a book. It's like writing a piece of an essay. Sharing something in the world is going to become part of the world forever. So even when I'm gone, at some point of time, someone may pick up a video that I created in 2015, 2021, 2025, whenever that is, not knowing who I am, not even frankly caring who I am, not needing to know who I am either, but just be moved, hopefully, by the content that they consumed in that. And that is just so empowering, because that's just the best legacy you can leave. I'm a firm believer, and this is where my realism comes in, that it takes at best a generation for the world to forget you. If 100 people know you, the day you die, 95 of them will not even care the next day. Of the 5 remaining, maybe 3 will care for the next 1 month. One of them will care for the next 1 year, and maybe one of them will care for their lifetime. But once they are dead, that's it. You're gone. You're over, my friend. Nobody cares. Nobody knows who you are. That's it. Game over. So there's frankly nothing that you're working towards. There isn't anything that is meaningfully going to make you very happy once you're gone. The only thing that you're trying to do is just be as content and as helpful as you can while you're alive. And in that measure, I feel that there is nothing better than content, because it's the best document you can leave behind.
Awesome. My team's telling me that we need to wrap this up because people won't go to other sessions and will just want this to keep continuing. So, just as a last question from my end, right? Uh, you know, if I were to ask you to summarize, your learnings and probably transfer that to the audience here in terms of something you read or you probably wrote, right? What would that be?
I think I'll go back to my life motto. It's not something that I came up with, but I absolutely adore it. It's a combination of these three words, which individually are very powerful. It's about doing, which is about action over thought. Everyone has a thought in their head, everyone has an idea, but until you don't translate that into action, it's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. So it's about doing. It's about epic, which means you're trying to do something that is bigger than you. Goes back to the conversation we were just having. You're creating something that not just is bigger than you, perhaps even outlives once you're gone, and that is meaningful. And it's shit in the sense that you're having fun while you're doing it. There is no pressure on you. You don't feel discontent. You don't feel disillusioned. You don't feel inadequate. So if you do things that are far bigger than you while having fun doing it, that, in my opinion, is the best life and the best way to approach anything. And I feel that this quote, in so many meaningful ways, just summarizes what I stand for and how I would like my life to be.
Awesome. I think this is beautiful, and I think it's been such a wonderful session. I think it's always about preserving this. And guys, for all of you who are asking, we have video recordings. We do. Thank you so much for attending this session, and thank you so much, Ankur, for sharing these learnings. I think we're really looking forward to just hearing you again and again and again, and rooting for that first million to come as fast as it can get. And I think, guys, you know what to do. So please, thank you so much again for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Aniro. Thanks for having me. All the best with Elevate, all the best with Pepper. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And for everyone listening in, thank you so much. If there's anything that I can help you with, please do not hesitate to reach out. I am on Twitter at Warikoo, and that's the best way to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. See you.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.